Hey everybody, thanks for clicking on this video. If you've been with this channel for a minute, you know I absolutely love Coleman camping gear. And this year for Christmas, my family was really good to me. They got me a few new pieces of camping gear. They got me this amazing new Coleman stove. And I want to show this thing to you guys today. I've been holding off on this for a bit, trying to find the right time to do a video on it. This is the Coleman 20,000 BTU Camp Grill and Stove. It's a one-piece unit that gives you a grill and a burner on the same piece of equipment. As you can see from the pictures here, it's the traditional Coleman suitcase style stove with a few tweaks to the design. So let's dive into this package and see what this thing's all about. So you can see the suitcase setup of the stove. It's got a latch on the front to keep everything closed up when it's not in use. On the front you see the control knobs. There's a lot of range in the knobs, and I'm curious to see if these knobs will allow for an adjustment of temperature that's as broad as the range on these knobs. So you've got wind guards on the side that you snap in place. And then of course we've got the grill and the burner cover. On the side over here, there is a slide out for a grease trap. And here's where we attach the fuel regulator. And of course this takes the standard Coleman green 1-pound cans. I have not looked yet, but most of these things have some kind of adapter that you can hook them up to a 20-pound or 30-pound propane can. At this time, I cannot answer the question as to whether this particular stove has that capability. If you already know, if you've already got one of these things, drop me a comment down below and let me know, and let everybody else know if this thing is compatible with the larger propane cans. So as cool as this thing is, we still have to know, can it cook? It's got some cool features, but will it cook? So I'm going to grab a pot, and I'm going to grab some ingredients. We're going to fire this thing up and we're going to test it out. By the way, this stove comes in two designs. One has an electric igniter and one does not. I ended up with the one that does not. So if an electric igniter is something you need on your kit, be sure you're picking the right piece. So what I'm cooking in today is this little Stanley cook pot. What says camping more than Stanley cookware on a Coleman stove? And what I'm going to do is something that a lot of cooks don't like to do even on a regular stove. I'm going to cook up a roux and I'm going to try to make gumbo. This is one of my family's favorite dishes. This is one of those things that every time I cook it and take it to some get together, everybody asks me to come back and do it again. And for whatever reason, right now while I'm trying to film, every kind of truck is driving down my street. I'm going to try to get the noise out of this thing, but in this pot I've got a mixture of oil and flour, and I'm going to fire up this grill and get it going. If you know anything about cooking a roux, you have to constantly be maintaining that heat and staying on it, or it will burn and the entire dish will be ruined. So this right here should be a great test of how well this Coleman stove can regulate its heat. Let's get this going. Okay, we're going to have to turn the heat down. I can tell already. This thing has already got the oil boiling in here. All right, so as you can see already, it's starting to cook really hard around the edges. I'm going to have to lift this up off the heat a little bit. All right, so one of the shortfalls of this stove that I can see already is it doesn't have a super low setting. When you turn it down to a certain point, it just either wants to turn off or it's going to just spring right back up to a very hot setting. The stove is really going to have its limits when it comes to doing any kind of fine detail cooking that requires very controllable temperatures. You're going to have to do a lot of holding it over the heat as opposed to just letting it sit on the heat. But that's one of the challenges that comes with camp cooking. I'm going to work on this roux for a little bit, and then I'll bring you guys back in when we're ready to go into the next steps of making this gumbo and testing out this Coleman grill. All right, so my roux is done, and now I'm going to add some mirepoix into that and let that start cooking down. Let's throw in a little garlic. That's going to bring the neighbors around. And while that's happening, we're going to fire up the other side. Now on to the grill side. We're going to drop some chicken. This is a chicken thigh that's been marinating in just a saltwater brine overnight. And on top of that, we're going to throw on some sausage because, I mean, we could just throw the sausage into the pot, but I want to make sure that we get a little bit of color on that. Hopefully it's not going to fall through the cracks in the grill. So now we've got both sides going. And there's Bobby over there in the background. Yeah, that's a lot of fire. One downfall I'm seeing to this already is this thing is really wanting to run away with the flame. It is hard to control that because this is on its lowest setting. So Coleman, if you're watching, let's maybe dial that in a little bit. Both of these are down as low as they can go, and they are just cooking away. Look how strong these flames are coming through here. This one here, I can probably offset it a little bit. And of course, on the grill side, you have that little barrier right in the middle that you can use to kind of keep your meat off the flames. I don't think I want to cook the sausage too much longer because it's starting to fall down the cracks. So I turned off the burner top, so I'm going to start adding my sausage into that pot, and then I'm going to let that chicken keep cooking. So one suggestion is maybe don't cut up your sausage before you put it on the grill. I was trying to save time for the video. Lost a sausage down in the burner. Oh, there goes another one. Sausage down. Let's go grab a couple more ingredients. Be right back. So into the big stock pot, we're going to throw in some chicken stock. Throw in a little bit more water so that can cook down for a little while. And of course, it wouldn't be gumbo without this. Bobby, stay out of my gumbo. Now the thing with gumbo is even at camp, you gotta let it cook for a while. Let that sausage break down, all the flavors in there kind of permeate into that stock and get into everything else. Let those vegetables in that mirepoix kind of soften up and absorb all that flavor. One thing about Cajun style cooking and Creole cooking is that it is all about getting that flavor through everything. All the flavors that you throw in there have to blend with each other and let that richness come through. And at camp, a lot of times, by the time you start cooking, you're already starving. So this is definitely one of those dishes that if you're gonna cook this, you're gonna wanna start early. Cooking on the grill side, cooking over this little bar definitely helps. Managed to get a good color for that gumbo. Bring all this chicken stock up to a boil and let it thicken a little bit with that roux. We also got to make sure that nothing burns onto the bottom. So I've got the heat turned up pretty high on the burner. So I want to get this thing up to boiling. And I can tell by the white foam that's forming on the top, it's just about there. So I don't want to let it quite get to a full boil because then it will boil over very quickly. So at this point, we got to keep a very close eye on it. There it is. We got to dial this back now. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a gigantic mess. Starting to thicken up nicely. Now it's just a matter of letting it cook down a little. By the way, this little camp table you see me using, this was also another Christmas gift from the family. This is made by a company called Coast Trail Outdoors. I really like that it has two different tabletop surfaces. It's got like a grate style table as well as a solid surface, so you can use them for different purposes. This thing's a really cool setup. It breaks down suitcase style, making it really easy to carry. All right, so now I'm going to take this chicken off and I'm going to cut it up over here. And then we're just going to kind of let it sit in one of the bowls that came with the Stanley Cook set because I don't want to add it in just yet. I don't want my chicken to end up overcooked. Bobby's been a constant helper throughout this entire process. The great thing about gumbo is you can cook it as long or as short as you want. You can make a quick batch of gumbo. It's not going to be as flavorful, but if that's what you need to do, then, I mean, there's no rules against it. One thing you want to be careful of, though, when you're cooking anything where you're using sausage in it is try not to salt it too much while you're cooking it because the cooking process is going to pull a lot of the salt out of the sausage and mix it with everything else. And if you put in your seasoning too early, then you're probably going to end up with it over-salted before it's over with. This thing's been cooking for a good minute, so we're going to add in the rest of our ingredients and get this camp gumbo wrapped up so that we can taste it. We got to get on to the good part. All right, so we need to add in our chicken. Now this next step is optional. It's up to your personal preference. A lot of people will cook rice on the side and then they'll pour gumbo over rice, or you can just eat it as a soup without the rice. Given that we're at camp, we're trying to minimize effort and whatnot, I'm just gonna put the rice in with the gumbo, let it absorb some of that liquid, thicken it up a little bit more, and cook the rice that way, and then we'll just serve it up like that. Now, there's some Cajun grandma somewhere that's probably losing her mind right now that I'm doing this, but let's let this finish cooking. I get a lot of questions when I do videos like this about what's your recipe, where can I find your recipe. I I don't really cook with recipes. I learned how to cook based on what I like and what it tastes like, and it's an experiment most times when I cook. Now, I've cooked gumbo a lot of times, but I just kind of eyeball my recipes when I cook this. Another great thing about Cajun and Creole cooking is you can kind of wing it. The entire idea of things like gumbo and jambalaya is to kind of clean out the fridge. You grab things that you've got on hand and you throw them in the pot, and you end up with what you end up with. There's more traditional styles of recipes like this, but the idea is that this is the food of the people, so you throw in what you've got. If you don't have a bunch of shrimp and crab and things like that, you can definitely do this with just chicken and sausage, or whatever you've got on hand. If you're one of these people that doesn't like sausage, then find something else to substitute. The idea is you start with that roux, you add your mirepoix, throw in some chicken stock and some seasonings and whatever else you like in your gumbo. I'm not a huge fan of filet gumbo. I grew up with it, but it's just not my favorite taste. I like a standard gumbo like this. That's a pretty gumbo. All right, so I'm going to use this bowl that came with the Stanley Cook set and the ladle that came with it and serve up some gumbo. Look at that. And there we have it, a good and thorough test of the Coleman Camp Grill and Stove. We managed to successfully, with a little effort, make gumbo for dinner. Got to test the grill side to cook the chicken and the sausage, the burner side to cook the stock and the roux. The ultimate test, of course, is what does this taste like? I know it's going to taste hot because I can feel it. Let's get a bite with everything. Let's get some of the chicken, some of the sausage, some of the base. It's perfect. I don't even have to add any more salt or anything. A little bit of hot sauce if that's what you're into. I sure am, but I don't have any hot sauce out here. I am absolutely satisfied with that. There are some downsides to this thing. Coleman could really stand to dial in the simmering temperatures just a little bit. For what this is intended to be, this is a great little device. Having the ability to throw some stuff on the grill, get some grill marks on it, and have that flame cooking without necessarily having to get a fire started, that's a great benefit. Having a burner over here that allows you to cook some other stuff while you're doing that, it's a brilliant concept. I love it. These things are going to go into heavy rotation for my camping trips, and I will leave an affiliate link in the description box below. Also, if you've stayed with me this far, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you can be made aware of every upcoming video that we've got, because there is going to be more. But for now, I've got to finish eating my gumbo and clean up all this stuff and put it away. And until the next one, prepare for the world that you live in, not the one you wish existed. And we'll see you next time.